realization. In the chaos, a loud voice suddenly rang out, "Get out of the way!" Lionheart, startled, thought to himself, "That voice sounds just like Silverback's. Why is Silverback standing among the ranks of the mighty gorilla?" Through the blinding light, Lionheart saw a tall figure charging toward him. The silhouette was all too familiar to Lionheart, having fought alongside Silverback in countless battles against rival gangs. "Silverback?" Lionheart called out, his voice tinged with confusion and disbelief. The figure did not pause, did not acknowledge the call. Instead, he launched a thunderous punch straight at Lionheart. Reacting instinctively, Lionheart raised his shield to absorb the blow. The impact was catastrophic, the force of the punch reverberating through the shield and sending Lionheart flying back more than 2 meters. The deadly sound of the punch clashing with the shield echoed in the chaos, a testament to the sheer power behind the strike. Thanks to the shield absorbing much of the force, Lionheart remained unharmed, though his hand tingled with numbness from the impact. As he steadied himself, he looked up at the towering figure and realized it was Rondu. In that moment, a flurry of thoughts raced through Lionheart's mind. The voice, the silhouette, and the powerful punch were unmistakably similar to Silverback's. There was no denying the eerie resemblance. This can't be a coincidence, Lionheart thought. There's some kind of plot at play here. The realization hit Lionheart like a second blow. There was more to this confrontation than met the eye. An intricate web of deception and hidden truths seemed to surround Rondu, Silverback, and the chaotic battle they were embroiled in. Lionheart's resolve hardened. He knew he had to unravel this mystery, but first, he had to survive the immediate threat posed by Rondu, who stood before him with the same deadly prowess that Silverback had demonstrated so many times before. With his heart pounding and his mind racing, Lionheart prepared for what would undoubtedly be a challenging and revealing confrontation. Lionheart recognized Rondu immediately because there had been a time when Eagle had ordered him to track Rondu's movements and report back. At the time, Lionheart had not questioned the need for surveillance. He had seen Rondu living a seemingly peaceful and happy life with Flora. It was a mundane assignment that didn't warrant much thought. Lionheart's thoughts. But now, in the heat of battle, questions flooded Lionheart's mind. Why had Eagle been so interested in Rondu? What connection did Rondu have to Eagle? And most disturbingly, could it be that Silverback and Rondu were the same person? A chill ran down Lionheart's spine at the thought. The pieces of a larger puzzle seemed to be falling into place, but the picture was still unclear. There was a significant conspiracy behind Silverback's true identity, a conspiracy that was slowly being unveiled. Lionheart's thoughts raced. He remembered the powerful voice, the imposing figure, and the deadly accuracy of the attacks. Everything about Rondu mirrored Silverback. It was too much to be mere coincidence. But if Silverback was indeed Rondu, why had Eagle kept this information secret? Why had he sent Lionheart to spy on Rondu without providing any context? The questions swirled in his mind, each one leading to more confusion. Lionheart felt a sense of unease growing within him. The realization that he had been a pawn in a much larger game was unsettling. There were layers of deception that he hadn't even begun to uncover. As he stood there, shield still raised, he knew he needed answers. But those answers would have to wait. For now, he had to focus on the immediate threat of Rondu, whose connection to Silverback remained a tantalizing mystery. With renewed determination, Lionheart prepared to face Rondu, knowing that this battle was not just a fight for survival, but a step closer to uncovering the truth behind the enigmatic figures of Silverback and Eagle. Rondu's fight. When Lionheart was struck back, Panthera wasted no time and launched a fierce attack on Rondu. Panthera's razor-sharp sword descended from above, aiming for Rondu's head. Rondu swiftly sidestepped, narrowly avoiding the deadly strike. At the same moment, Hawkeye and Tiger Claw swung their chains towards him, but Rondu adeptly dodged their attempts. Panthera, Hawkeye, and Tiger Claw synchronized their attacks, converging on Rondu from different angles. Panthera's sword slashed through the air with deadly precision, Hawkeye's chain whistled as it spun towards Rondu, and Tiger Claw's chain came from the opposite direction, seeking to ensnare him. Rondu moved with an almost supernatural grace, evading each attack with fluid movements. His agility and combat prowess were evident as he parried Panthera's sword with his forearm guard, deflected Hawkeye's chain with a swift kick, and spun out of Tiger Claw's reach. He was a whirlwind of defense and counterattacks, clearly outmatching his three opponents. While Rondu faced off against Panthera, Hawkeye, and Tiger Claw, 10 members of the mighty gorilla gang charged at the remaining 5 members of the 10 Great Assassins. The battle was fierce and evenly matched. The mighty guerrilla fighters, with their brute strength and numbers, clashed violently with the skilled and deadly assassins. Falcon, armed with his crossbow, fired bolts with pinpoint accuracy, taking down several of the mighty guerrilla members who ventured too close. Jackal, with his deadly iron cards, created a lethal storm of metal, cutting through the air and finding their marks with deadly precision. Scorpio used his staff to fend off multiple attackers, each strike sending his opponents reeling. The mighty guerrilla fighters, however, were relentless. They pushed forward, their sheer force and determination creating a formidable barrier. Despite the ferocity of their attacks, the assassins held their ground, their years of training and experience shining through. The clash of metal on metal, the grunts of exertion, and the occasional cry of pain filled the air as the two sides battled fiercely. Rondu, meanwhile, continued to dominate his fight. Panthera lunged again, but Rondu sidestepped and delivered a swift, powerful kick to Panthera's midsection, sending him sprawling. Hawkeye attempted to wrap his chain around Rondu's legs, but Rondu leaped into the air, avoiding the snare and landing a powerful punch to Hawkeye's jaw. Tiger Claw swung his chain in a wide arc, but Rondu ducked under it and countered with a sharp elbow to Tiger Claw's ribs. Each of Rondu's movements was calculated and precise, showcasing his superior skill. His opponents were skilled, but they couldn't keep up with his speed and strength. Panthera, Hawkeye, and Tiger Claw found themselves constantly on the defensive, struggling to keep up with Rondu's relentless assault. In the chaotic melee, the mighty guerrilla fighters pressed on, but the assassins were not to be underestimated. Each member of the 10 Great Assassins fought with lethal efficiency, their coordination and lethal skills turning the tide of the battle. Despite being outnumbered, they held their own, cutting down their enemies with ruthless precision. In the midst of the chaos, the battlefield was a scene of chaos and brutality, with bodies falling and blood spilling. The mighty guerrilla's numbers gave them an advantage, but the assassin's skill and determination kept them in the fight. Rondu, meanwhile, remained untouchable, his movements a blur as he dismantled the combined efforts of Panthera, Hawkeye, and Tiger Claw. As the battle raged on, it became clear that Rondu was more than a match for his 3 opponents. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't land a decisive blow on him. His dominance in the fight was undeniable, a testament to his superior training and innate combat instincts. The 5 members of the 10 Great Assassins, despite being evenly matched with the 10 mighty guerrilla fighters, gradually began to gain the upper hand. Their precision and deadly efficiency were starting to show, as more and more mighty guerrilla members fell to their relentless onslaught. Rondu's superior combat skills continued to shine as he fought off Panthera, Hawkeye, and Tiger Claw. Panthera, frustrated by his inability to land a hit, lunged forward with a wild swing, but Rondu easily sidestepped and delivered a crushing blow to Panthera's side, sending him crashing to the ground. Hawkeye tried to ensnare Rondu with his chain, but Rondu caught the chain in midair and yanked Hawkeye towards him, delivering a devastating knee strike to his face. Tiger Claw attempted to capitalize on the distraction, but Rondu was ready, spinning around and landing a powerful kick to Tiger Claw's chest, knocking the wind out of him. The fight was reaching a critical point. The mighty gorilla's initial advantage in numbers was being steadily eroded by the assassin's deadly efficiency. Each member of the 10 Great Assassins fought with a cold, calculated precision, their attacks coordinated and lethal. The mighty guerrilla fighters, despite their strength and determination, were falling one by one. As the battle raged on, the tide was turning in favor of the 10 Great Assassins. Despite the mighty gorilla's fierce resistance, they were being systematically taken down. The assassins' superior skills and lethal efficiency were proving to be too much for them. In the midst of the chaos, Rondu continued to dominate his fight. Panthera, Hawkeye, and Tiger Claw were no match for his superior skills and relentless assault. Each of them was struggling to keep up, their attacks becoming increasingly desperate as they tried to fend off Rondu's relentless onslaught. The battlefield was a scene of chaos and brutality, with bodies falling and blood spilling. Despite their best efforts, the mighty guerrilla fighters were being systematically taken down by the assassins' deadly efficiency. The tide of battle was turning. The mighty guerrilla's initial advantage in numbers was being steadily eroded by the assassins' superior skills and lethal efficiency. Each member of the 10 great assassins fought with a cold, calculated precision, their attacks coordinated and lethal. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the 10 great assassins were gaining the upper hand. Despite their initial disadvantage, their superior skills and deadly efficiency were proving to be too much for the mighty guerrilla fighters. In the end, it was clear that the 10 great assassins were the dominant force on the battlefield. Their superior skills and deadly efficiency had turned the tide of battle in their favor, and the mighty guerrilla fighters were being systematically taken down. Lost memories. As Rondu fought fiercely against Panthera, Hawkeye, and Tiger Claw, a sense of familiarity began to creep into his mind. Each strike, each defensive posture, every movement felt eerily recognizable. His opponent's fighting styles triggered fleeting images, memories of past battles and camaraderie that he couldn't quite place. Panthera's swift and graceful swordplay brought back flashes of training sessions and intense sparring matches. The way Panthera moved, with precision and fluidity, resonated with something deep within Rondu. He could almost recall matching those very same moves in perfect synchronization, like a dance rehearsed countless times. Hawkeye's chain attacks also seemed familiar. The deadly arcs, the calculated spins, and the precise timing, it was as if Rondu had seen and even executed those very techniques before. His mind conjured up images of another fighter, working side by side with him, chains whirling in tandem as they took down enemies with unerring accuracy. Tiger Claw's brute strength and raw power felt like a mirror of battles fought shoulder to shoulder. The impact of Tiger Claw's strikes, the sheer force behind each swing, resonated with Rondu's own fighting spirit. Memories of coordinated assaults, where strength and strategy combined to overpower adversaries, floated just out of reach in his consciousness. As the fight continued, Rondu's confusion grew. The familiarity was undeniable, yet the memories were fragmented and unclear. Each clash of weapons, each evasive maneuver, only deepened the sense that these fighters were not just adversaries, they were once comrades. Between the flashes of recognition, Rondu found himself momentarily distracted, and Panthera's blade came dangerously close to finding its mark. He refocused, parrying the attack with a sudden surge of clarity. He could almost hear a voice from his past, encouraging him, guiding him through battles just like this one. The realization hit him like a tidal wave. These fighters, Panthera, Hawkeye, Tiger Claw, they were more than just opponents. They were echoes of his own past, reflections of the battles he had fought and the allies he had fought alongside. The memories were still blurry, but the connection was undeniable. Rondu's mind raced. Could it be possible that these very warriors had once stood by his side? That the techniques he now faced were the very ones he had honed and perfected with them? The thought was both unsettling and enlightening. It meant that somewhere in his past, he had shared a bond with these fighters, a bond forged in the heat of battle and the crucible of war. He moved with renewed purpose, each strike now carrying the weight of this newfound understanding. His attacks were not just defenses, they were a desperate attempt to unlock the memories that lay hidden within his mind. Panthera's swordplay, Hawkeye's chains, Tiger Claw's strength, all pieces of a puzzle that he was now determined to solve. With each clash, the images became clearer. He saw flashes of coordinated assaults, shared victories, and moments of camaraderie. He remembered the thrill of battle, the trust forged in the heat of conflict. These were not just enemies, they were fragments of his past, fragments of a life he was only beginning to rediscover. The realization brought a mix of emotions. There was a sense of loss for the camaraderie that had been forgotten, a yearning to understand the full scope of his past. But there was also a sense of determination, a burning desire to reclaim the memories that had been taken from him. As Rondu continued to fight, his movements became more deliberate, more focused. He was no longer just reacting, he was seeking, probing, trying to connect the dots of his past. Each strike, each block, each dodge was an attempt to unlock the mysteries that lay buried within his mind. The battle raged on, but for Rondu, it had become something more than a mere fight for survival. It was a journey of self-discovery, a quest to uncover the truth about his past and the warriors who had once fought by his side. And with each passing moment, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, revealing a story of loyalty, friendship, and lost memories that he was determined to reclaim. The overwhelming odds. The sudden influx of reinforcements from the mighty guerrilla gang turned the tide of the battle almost instantly. The 10 great assassins, who had been holding their own despite the relentless assault, now found themselves severely outnumbered. 20 more members of the mighty guerrilla charged into the fray, their battle cries echoing through the chaos. Lionheart, standing amidst the clashing blades and flying projectiles, took a brief moment to assess the situation. "We're surrounded," he muttered, his voice tinged with a mix of determination and resignation. "We might not make it out of here alive." Falcon, standing close by, loosed another volley of arrows into the advancing enemy ranks. "We need to regroup," he shouted, his eyes darting between his comrades and the approaching foes. Panthera, with his sword drawn, slashed through the air, barely keeping the attackers at bay. "There's no end to them," he exclaimed, his voice strained from the exertion. The mighty guerrilla members formed a tight ring around the 10 great assassins, closing in with a ferocity that left no room for escape. Their sheer numbers and the relentless pressure of their attacks began to take its toll. Hawkeye and Tigerclaw, swinging their chains in wide arcs, struggled to keep the enemies from breaching their defenses. Each clash of metal against metal sent shockwaves through their bodies, wearing them down bit by bit. Scorpio, wielding his staff with precision, managed to fend off several opponents, but the overwhelming numbers began to show their impact. For every enemy he struck down, 2 more seemed to take their place. The air was thick with the sounds of combat, grunts of exertion, the clanging of weapons, and the cries of the wounded. Jackal, his eyes sharp and focused, flung his iron cards with deadly accuracy. Each throw found its mark, but the enemy's persistence was unwavering. "We're running out of room," he called out, his voice betraying a hint of desperation. The 10 great assassins were being pushed back, inch by inch. The once confident and unyielding warriors now faced an uncertain fate as the mighty guerrilla gang closed in tighter. Blood stained the ground, and the air was filled with the acrid scent of sweat and fear. Despite the dire situation, the 10 great assassins fought on. Their years of training and the bond they shared drove them to continue resisting, even as the odds seemed insurmountable. Each member knew their role, and they executed their techniques with a precision that only seasoned warriors could muster. But the relentless onslaught of the mighty guerrilla members left little room for respite or strategy. Lionheart, still leading the defense, felt the weight of his responsibility pressing down on him. He knew that if they were to fall, it would be a significant blow to Eagle's plans and the legacy of the 10 great assassins. His eyes met those of his comrades, and in that silent exchange, he saw their shared resolve. They would fight to the last breath, not for glory, but for the brotherhood they had forged through countless battles. As the battle raged on, the 10 great assassins found themselves backed into a corner. The mighty guerrilla gang, sensing victory, intensified their attacks. Blades clashed, and arrows whistled through the air. The defenders' movements became more labored, their strikes less precise as fatigue set in. Yet, they stood firm, a testament to their unyielding spirit. In the midst of the chaos, Wolfbane found himself separated from the others, facing multiple opponents. His eyes narrowed with determination as he parried and counterattacked, but the sheer number of enemies began to overwhelm him. He took a deep breath, centering himself, and fought on with renewed vigor, knowing that his comrades depended on him. Falcon, perched on a slight elevation, continued to provide cover with his arrows, but the enemies were closing in on his position. "I won't let them take us down easily," he muttered to himself, drawing another arrow from his quiver. Scorpio and Tigerclaw fought side by side, their movements synchronized from years of training together. They managed to create a brief opening, pushing back the encroaching attackers. "We've got to hold this line," Scorpio urged, his voice steady despite the chaos. Panthera, his sword a blur of motion, defended against multiple opponents, his focus unwavering. He glanced towards Lionheart and saw the same determination mirrored in his leader's eyes. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and exhausted, but their spirit remained unbroken. As the mighty guerrilla members pressed their advantage, the 10 great assassins found themselves facing the very real possibility of defeat. Their situation was dire, but their resolve was unshaken. They fought not just for survival, but for each other, for the legacy they had built, and for the belief that they could overcome any obstacle together. The battlefield was a maelstrom of violence and determination, with the 10 great assassins standing at the center, a beacon of defiance against overwhelming odds. Each member fought with everything they had, knowing that this could be their final stand. The sounds of battle echoed around them, a symphony of struggle and perseverance. In that moment, they were more than just warriors, they were a family, bound by loyalty and the unbreakable bond of shared trials. And as they faced the oncoming storm, they did so with the knowledge that whatever the outcome, they had given their all. The fight continued, each second stretching into an eternity as the 10 great assassins held their ground. They were battered, bloodied, and bruised, but they remained unbowed. The odds were against them, but their spirit was a force that no enemy could break. And in the heart of that battle, they found the strength to fight on, defying the darkness that sought to consume them. The brink of desperation. The battle had reached a fever pitch, with the 10 great assassins cornered and facing what seemed to be their inevitable demise. Each member of the 10 great assassins fought with a fierce determination, their bodies bearing the scars of the relentless assault from the mighty guerrilla gang. Bloodied and bruised, they struggled to keep their defenses up, knowing that any lapse could mean their end. Lionheart, his armor battered and his shield dented, swung his weapons with the last remnants of his strength. His thoughts raced, despair creeping in as he realized the dire situation they were in. The relentless onslaught of the mighty guerrilla gang, combined with their sheer numbers, had pushed them to the brink. "We won't make it," he muttered under his breath, feeling the weight of their predicament. Panthera, fighting valiantly beside Lionheart, felt his muscles scream in protest with every movement. His swordsmanship, usually precise and deadly, was now driven by desperation. He parried and struck with all his might, but the enemy seemed endless. "We have to hold on," he urged, more to himself than anyone else. Hawkeye and Tigerclaw, their chains a blur of motion, tried to create a defensive perimeter. But even their formidable skills were beginning to falter under the relentless pressure. Scorpio, wielding his staff, fought with a grim determination, every strike fueled by the knowledge that they were fighting for their lives. Jackal and Falcon, their ranged attacks keeping some of the enemies at bay, were running out of ammunition and options. Each arrow and iron card they loosed was a testament to their resilience, but even they could see the grim reality of their situation. "We're surrounded," Falcon whispered, his voice tinged with desperation. As the mighty guerrilla members closed in, their chants of victory growing louder, Rondu watched from a distance. His heart ached at the sight of the 10 great assassins being pushed to the edge. Despite his position, he felt an inexplicable connection to the beleaguered warriors. "Why do I feel this way?" he wondered, his mind a tumult of confusion and empathy. At the height of the battle's chaos, Rondu's voice rang out, clear and commanding, "Stop. Everyone, stop fighting immediately." His command cut through the din of battle, and the mighty guerrilla members, recognizing his authority, ceased their attacks. Rondu stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the battered and bloodied the 10 great assassins. "You may go," he said, his voice steady but filled with a deep, unspoken understanding. The members of the 10 great assassins, barely able to stand, began to retreat, their eyes filled with a mix of relief and bewilderment. Lionheart, limping but resolute, turned to look at Rondu one last time. "I'm certain you're Silverback," he said, his voice carrying a mix of gratitude and a promise of future confrontation. "Thank you for sparing us, but this isn't over." The 10 great assassins made their way out, their retreat marked by the shouts and jeers of the mighty guerrilla members. Rondu watched them go, his mind a whirl of conflicting emotions. Silverback, he murmured to himself, the name feeling both foreign and familiar. Why does that name resonate so deeply within me? The mighty guerrilla gang fell silent as Rondu's words hung in the air. The intensity of the battle, the closeness of death, and the unexpected reprieve had left everyone stunned. The ground was littered with the signs of their struggle, broken weapons, shattered shields, and the bodies of the fallen. As the 10 great assassins disappeared into the distance, Rondu stood amidst the wreckage, grappling with the fragments of his past and the weight of his present. The name Silverback echoed in his mind, a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit but seemed to hold the key to his identity. For the 10 great assassins, the retreat was a bitter reminder of their vulnerability. Each step away from the battlefield was a step taken in pain and introspection. They had been spared, but the questions left in the wake of their survival gnawed at them. Lionheart, leading the wounded group, couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity. Silverback, he thought, recalling the power and technique of Rondu's attacks. Could it be? Could he truly be one of us? The uncertainty and the need for answers would drive them forward, seeking the truth behind the enigmatic warrior who had saved them. Back on the battlefield, Rondu's decision to spare the 10 great assassins weighed heavily on him. He had acted on instinct, driven by a sense of connection he couldn't fully understand. As he looked around at the remnants of the battle, he knew that his journey was far from over. The answers he sought lay hidden in the past, and only by confronting them could he hope to understand the man he truly was.